Our timeline. Let me begin by saying that I've been lurking here for 4 months or so reading all the horrible stories. I'm sort of at a crossroads and need some words of advice. On February 2nd years ago, my wife of 18 years and a former high school friend made contact on Facebook and eventually began to have an affair. Things had not been great between the two of us due to an illness of hers. An illness to my son and dementia that my wife's father became ill with. It put a lot of stress on her and nothing I did seemed to make much of a difference. She just got more and more distant and angry. Anyway, in June or July we got into a large argument and she finally told me that she was doubting that she could continue in the marriage. At this point her affair was still hidden from me, but I started probing, and in August I found her at his house. Of course, over the months she denied that there was anything going on other than a friendship. She claimed that he listened to her problems better than I could. At one point she had me convinced that this was the case and I tried to be accepting, but it was very difficult. Despite my request for her to be more open with her friendship, she continued to hide things and I continued to probe. I eventually put a keylogger on her computer, and along with information gathered there from her cell phone records I realized that she was indeed having an affair. After many confrontations and with me still vowing to fix our marriage, I gave up around April last year. She and my daughter began looking for an apartment to move into. She continued to deceive me, and at the end of June I paid her first month's rent for her to move sooner than she planned. She and my daughter moved out, my daughter's choice, so she could keep my wife company. My son and I stayed in the house. We had already filed for separation. My son blew her plan apart when he announced that he would not be moving with her. My wife continually told me that she did not want a divorce because she needed my health care coverage. Not sure why, but I agreed to this. Perhaps as a way to keep her in my life. Who knows? Anyway, in July I started to date a wonderful woman. My wife continued to see her old boyfriend. I tried everything to be a decent ex. I really did not want to argue with her. She and her boyfriend broke up in September. In November she began talking about reconciliation. For some stupid reason around Christmas, I jumped at the chance and told my girlfriend that I was going to reconcile with her. I really didn't feel good about this, and after a week I broke down and told the wife that I couldn't go through with it. I had prematurely jumped at the opportunity before really thinking it through. Over the next few months, she began to interfere with my dating using the kids to do so. It got to the point that my girlfriend told me that she felt like the other woman. At this point it got to be too much for me. I was hurting my girlfriend because I couldn't make a stand against my wife. I decided I needed to stop dating until I could come to terms with it. After my wife heard the news that I broke things off, she immediately started campaigning and to move back in. We've been going to counseling, but I'm having a tough time with this. I do love my wife, but we've gone through so much and I'm just not sure what I want anymore. It almost feels as if something inside of me has died. I just can't seem to get excited about seeing her or having much interaction with her. She is very remorseful about what she's done, has admitted to her wrongdoings, has continued to go to counseling, and has begun to attend church again. I know that she is sincere, but I'm worried that she just misses her life and not me or our marriage. I took good care of her and the kids, and not having that has been tough on her. When she first consulted an attorney, she was told that due to the difference in our income that she would probably be granted a bit of alimony along with child support. The alimony fell through when she finally revealed the affair. Her child support effectively got reduced to half when my son wouldn't live with her. Suddenly she found herself with barely enough money to survive on. I know he dumped her. Apparently, he has commitment issues. Yes, I know if she was living financially comfortably that everything would be different. She's actually not with me now. She wants to be but isn't. I've taken a break from her. No contact. She keeps asking what she can do to help me to heal and to forgive her. I really don't know what to say to that. I'm not sure if there's anything she can do. I'm not angry with her anymore, but I am bitter. One thing I asked her for was no contact with the guy. I needed to hear her break it off with him once and for all. She did talk to him, but she denied me the opportunity to hear it as I requested. I just fired off an angry email to her about this. It's been bugging me for several weeks now that she again took her own feelings into account first and mine became secondary. Had a long discussion this morning on the phone with her about her lack of conversation she had with him. I think it finally hit her that she should have been willing to do what it takes and not talk me out of listening to the conversation. Anyway, in lieu of what's already been done, I told her she could write a no-contact letter and I'd mail it to him after reading it. We'll see how seriously she takes it. I know she is trying to make things right, but she just keeps making bad decisions. The more she does this, the more I just want to check out. My biggest reason for not divorcing her is that I don't want to make a decision that I may regret later. I'm trying to work through this to see if there's anything left to be salvaged. I've apologized to the new girl and she understands that I meant it. It's one of the worst things I've ever had to do. Never want to go through that again or put anyone through that again. And yes, I resent the hell out of the wife for all the lies, manipulations, etc. that occurred. Hell, I bought her a car in that April. That's 2 months after she started seeing him, even though she swears they hadn't had slept together yet. Doesn't matter though, seeing him and my buying her a car. Just hard to get past things like that. I told her on the 8th that I wanted a no-contact letter to him and that I'd mail it. She didn't take it too seriously, I don't think. Since then, we've decided that I need time away from her. Her idea, but she was shocked when I agreed. Sent her a quick email on the 11th reminding her that the letter was very important. Hasn't been brought up since by her or me, nor am I going to. If she doesn't understand how necessary it is to show her seriousness to reconcile, or she's still wanting to keep him as a backup plan. We're legally separated and all of our assets have been split up. The only financial tie we have is the mortgage for the house I'm in. Any new debts are individual and have been applied for as such. I guess she was bluffing, asking for the tax returns. Maybe I'd fall to my knees to ask her to move back in. She didn't get the response she wanted, so she called me and said, I guess this is it. I said, yup, guess I'll contact the attorney. Again, she was bluffing and started pleading her case. I finally reminded her of the no contact letter. Her excuse for not writing it. It just seems cruel to write him the letter and she wasn't going to do it. Gee, sparing his feelings for mine yet again. She also complained about having to sign another lease like I told her to for the apartment. I reminded her that she could leave at any time if she gave 60 days notice. She argued that she'd lose her deposit and 1 month's rent if she did that. Really, you'd rather lose your marriage instead of $12 She asked me what else she could do, so I reminded her about the letter. She refused. I also reminded her that she had told me I could have access to her phone, email accounts, Facebook, etc. Well, today she says she'll print out the last 3 months of phone records, but that's all I get. Nothing before that and nothing in the future, and no other access to accounts. I'm done. Already emailed my attorney. Well, my appointment with the attorney is at 4 p.m. today. Don't foresee any complications since we're already legally separated. Did get an email from her this morning saying she's tired of trying to reconcile and not getting much back from me. How's that for patience and understanding? 3 weeks of her saying she's sorry but still hiding her actions. Oh well, at least the divorce papers won't be a shock to her. Didn't reply to her email nor her phone call this morning. The kids know something is up. That's easy. I'm just torn as to whether or not I tell them that their mother had an affair if they want to know. She is still their mother after all. I'm sure both of them know more than they let on already. My daughter in the past hasn't wanted to know. My son I know has a clue, which is part of his problem with her. I want both of them to have a good relationship with her. I'd like them to know the truth, but at the same time I'm scared it may destroy their relationship. Sat down with the kids on Saturday and had a long talk with them about things that happened. Told them all the things that both their mother and I did wrong to damage our marriage. I brought up the fact that their mother had feelings for someone else that she couldn't let go of. My daughter corrected me and said that mom and that guy were just good friends. I asked her if she wanted to know the truth and she said yes. I explained to her that they were more than just good friends. There was a relationship between them. I let it go at that. Last night my soon-to-be ex calls and is furious that I told our kids that she was having an affair. After hanging up on her several times, she finally calmed down so we could have a discussion. I explained to her that affair and the physical affair never were mentioned. I told her what I said and she was still really upset with this, saying the kids didn't need to know. All I was trying to do was to be honest with my kids so that when they grow up, they can hopefully avoid the mistakes their mother and I made. The truth will come out sooner or later. Better to tell them now than to accidentally find out later. My son is really upset that his mother told my daughter that I was basically lying. Had to calm him down after that one. But whatever, she asked that I have the kids this past weekend. She had plans. Yup. She's already seeing him again. Yes, my daughter will see the truth soon enough. Well, the D papers are in the soon-to-be ex's hands at this very moment. I'm so anxious for her to sign them that it's making her hesitate. She thinks I'm up to something. And I am. I want to be away from her. Can't wait for this nightmare to be over so I can move on. The selfishness continues. Despite the fact that we have 2 kids and one would think a decent mother would want her kids to have the same last name as her to avoid confusion. Problems. She's decided to change her name back to her maiden name. Always thinking of herself. Quite the piece of work she is. I need to keep reminding myself that I'm better off with her having a different last name as me. The more separation the better. Half a year later. Well, my attorney called me last week and informed me that the much drawn-out divorce is finally official. I haven't gotten the official notice yet, but I know it's coming. My now ex-W called before my attorney called and wanted to know the status of the divorce. I asked her why it was so important to her now. Told her I couldn't care less what she's doing. I'm not watching her or paying attention to who she's seeing or doing. I don't ask the kids what she's doing or what happens when they go to see her. I'm living my life going forward, and so should she. The marriage is over, so why do you care when it's over? Her response, because I'm trying to emotionally prepare myself to receive the notice in the mail. Every day I'm scared to death to get my mail. And this response is exactly why I very rarely have any contact with her anymore. Infuriating. There's no doubt in my mind that I did the right thing. I'm much happier now, have a wonderful girlfriend, less stress in my life, and I'm not constantly trying to figure out what she's doing. My kids seem to be happier too. Yeah, at times they don't like shuttling back and forth, but so much better. It's just her occasional comments that still get to me, hence my lack of contact with her. She never came out and said but yeah, she did want me back. I couldn't do it through because she expected me to do all the wooing. To this day she feels like I caused her to have an affair. That if I had given her everything she needed, that she wouldn't have gone astray. I can't live with that and refuse to be blamed for it. She knows that I can't get past her affair, which is why she hasn't brought it up again. Yes, she's seeing her boyfriend again. The minute I told her I couldn't reconcile, she hustled over to his house. She canceled plans with the kids last weekend because he was in the hospital. Such a good mother. I normally don't take her calls. I just let it ring. I've told her so many times that she can email or text me, but I wouldn't talk to her. Her answer: I want to talk, not email or text. Well, tough crap. I don't care what she wants. It's email, text, or nothing. Yes, her ongoing lies and omissions help drive the final nail. Funny, she always accused me of lying, and it turns out that it was her. I've known my ex-W since I was 16, dated in high school and college. I married someone else, divorced, and got back together with her. Married to her for almost 20 years. I thought she and I had a bond that could not be broken. I took my vows seriously. She turned out to be someone that I don't know. It was very hard giving up on her and moving on, but I had to for my own sake. I've actually figured her out in the past year. She loves being a victim. Everything is done to her. She doesn't cause anything, and she always wants someone to pity her. I've thought back over the years, and nothing ever seems to be her fault, but she always wants sympathy from those around her. I guess it doesn't work much for her these days, though. She only has 2 sisters and 1 friend that tolerate her, other than the OM. And they may even be onto her. Part of her problem with me over the past several years is that I've called her out on her crap. She got really fed up with me not giving her the poor sweet thing. I told her how I saw it, and it caused a lot of arguments. My relationship with my daughter is just fine. She will, however, defend my ex-W to the end. My ex-W lies to her constantly, and my daughter tries her hardest to believe it all. I know she doesn't, but she tries. My ex-W still insists to her that she and the OM were just friends, even though they are dating now. As a matter of fact, my ex-W just lied to me and my kids this past week. OM was in the hospital said due to gallstones. Well, last night ex-W went to go see him in the hospital. I thought it strange that he was still in the hospital. Turns out that he had an ulcer erupt, tore his stomach open, and emptied the contents into the void. Now, why in the world does she need to lie to me and the kids about why he's in the hospital? About 2 years before she began having her affair, she admitted to me that she had an STD and had had it since before we were married, 15 years at that point. I wasn't mad about the STD, but was extremely disturbed that she had hidden this from me since we began dating in 1989. She claims that she thought I wouldn't have married her if she had revealed the truth, which is not true. She held this secret through the entire marriage and through 2 childbirths. At the time she told me, things were not good between us. A lot of distance and silence. Looking back, I really have to wonder if she really had the STD all that time, or if she'd had an earlier affair and had contracted it. Like I said, it really doesn't matter anymore, but things like this stick in my head and I really have to wonder. It was herpes. She claims that she's known about it since before we were married. Claims that she dated a few guys and isn't sure which one gave it to her. Yes, I went to many of the prenatal appointments and it was never mentioned. Our first child was extremely complicated. He was born 5 weeks premature. I was very involved with her appointments and doctor visits. She did go to quite a few without me, though. 5 years ago was about the time I started asking her if she was happy or if she was considering divorce. She never seemed to be happy. Makes me wonder if she did indeed have another affair that she was very careful to hide. I have custody of my 18-year-old son, his choice, and she has custody of our 15-year-old daughter, her choice. My daughter once told me that she decided to stay with her mother due to our son insisting that he would live with me. She didn't want her mother to be alone. I am good with those decisions. Here's the situation. My daughter comes to my house after school each day. About half the time eats supper with me before she goes to her mother's. On weekends that I have the kids, I have them from Friday afternoon until my daughter goes home on Sunday evening. Very few exceptions, and even then, it's because of what the kids want. But when it's the ex's weekend to see the kids, it's a different story. First of all, my son maybe spends one night each weekend at his mother's. This weekend he's told me he's not. My daughter on Thursday told me she was spending Friday night with me, ex's weekend. Asked her why, and she said her mother had plans and she was scared to stay at home by herself. BTW, this is a result of the ex having her purse stolen with ID and house keys in the mix. Both kids have gone shopping with her today, Saturday. My son is coming home this evening and my daughter is staying at her mom's, but now tells me she's spending the day with me tomorrow. She won't tell me why though. I suspect the ex has plans once again. Of course, I get now phone call, text or email from the ex asking if I can play host. This whole scenario has been played quite a few times. The ex has become very selfish. I understand that she wants to have a social life, but at the expense of her kids. Part of me wants to take her back to court and try to get custody of my daughter, but unless the ex does something really bad, I don't think it will happen. My daughter, I think, would like to live with me but would never do that to her mother regardless of her true feelings. I'm just really sick and tired of their mother not putting our kids first and then taking advantage of me. Does anyone have any good advice as to what I can do? 2 months later, well, news took little time to get to me this morning. Turns out that my cheating ex-W is now engaged to her. Funny. My daughter has told me so many times about how her mother and her boyfriend are against marriage and that both have stated so many times that neither will ever remarry. I've known for a very long time that she couldn't make it on her own and that she'd marry him if given the chance just to survive financially. She lived off of me for 20 years, so I've officially been divorced for a whopping 4 months. I guess if any of her family or friends doubted that she had an affair, this pretty much cements it. I asked my son about it this morning and he was shocked that I knew. The ex-W had sworn my kids to secrecy. He asked how I knew. All I told him was that if she doesn't want the world to know, don't post it on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore due to her using it for her affair, and she hides all posts except to people she's friends with. Funny though, her brother-in-law works for me and his daughter is friends with the ex-W on FB. It all gets back to me. I'm sure the ex-W will be scratching her head for a long time wondering how I get all my information. I'll never tell. I'm fine, in better shape than when I was married. I don't take her phone calls. I've told her to text or email if she absolutely has to say something about the kids. But they're 18 and 15, so there's very little that the ex and I need to talk about. Drives her nuts. Also drives her nuts that paying CS is making me as broke as she is. She's always saying something to the kids about how she doesn't have money, but I do. I have no problems with her getting married. Bothered me for about 30 seconds when I was told, but I don't really care. She'll be miserable with him and vice versa. It's only a matter of time. They deserve each other. I'm much better off without her, both mentally and financially. Been dating ever since she moved out of the house 1.5 years ago. But I'm in no way looking to get married anytime soon. 3 months later, well, my son tells me Friday that his mother is getting married on Saturday. Made me laugh out loud. When she first announced to the world on Facebook, it was going to be a year. It then got moved to April. Happened this past Saturday. The only sad part is that my ex didn't tell my son until Friday. She knew he had to work on Saturday, so she didn't bother to invite him until the last minute, even though my daughter was present and involved in the planning. My son had previously asked her why she was getting married since she and her AP had sworn off marriage. Her response was that she's getting older and she didn't want to date someone for a few years before getting married. Great excuse. Well, I hope they're both happy. I am. But whatever, my girlfriend tells me the Facebook pic of their wedding was pretty laughable. He looks 20 years older than she does. Had to vent a little. I'm still pretty resentful. I recently paid off my ex-wife. Paid her the last 10 months of child support in full. The only things I'm still obligated for are health care, half of non-covered medical expenses, and half of extracurricular activities until she graduates from high school. My daughter is 17 and school starts next week. She has signed up for 2 dual enrollment classes at the local college. She gets high school and college credits. She's a senior in high school. The ex sent a receipt and asked for my half of the tuition. I'm really on the fence as to whether this would be considered extracurricular. Don't get me wrong, I want to help my daughter, but finances are tight and the ex hasn't lifted one finger to help our son in college. Not one penny. He's been through 2 years at the community college and is now transferring to a 4-year college. She hasn't paid for one thing, contributed nothing. And now I'm being asked to pay for tuition for my daughter. Should I just let this go since it can only happen for 2 semesters and the amount isn't going to ruin me? I really don't want to fight with her about this, but I'm worried about just paying it and suddenly being expected to pay for other expenses. She hasn't had much in the way of extracurricular activities. Really hasn't come into play. I see this as being for tuition, but I guess the argument could be made that it is extracurricular since she's still in high school. I'm thinking about paying it since it can only happen for 2 semesters. It's the boundary issue that I have a problem with. If I don't draw that line in the sand, sometimes it may cause problems. But whatever, I have paid every penny I owe her without argument and without question, and done so immediately. A year later, been divorced from my cheating ex-W for 2 years now. About 2 years ago I posted the OM on Cheaterville. Not really sure now why I didn't post the ex-W on there too, but anyway. Here it is years later. I have very little to do with the ex-W. Just got an angry text from her demanding I take down the post on her now husband. Said I have until the end of the day, lol. I'd actually forgotten all about the post. Not really sure if they never saw the post before or if it's just now affecting them. Oh well, I've learned to live with it, so can they. About a year later, met and have been dating my current girlfriend for 3 years. I have a 21-year-old son living at home and an 18-year-old daughter in college. She has a 24-year-old daughter living nearby and a 17-year-old daughter living at home. My son and her older daughter know that my girlfriend and I have slept together. Our younger daughters I'm sure know, but the girlfriend is very intent on hiding the fact from them. I understand to a certain extent. The problem though is that in the last year our kids have unknowingly been putting a strain on our relationship. Her younger daughter now finds any excuse possible not to go to her father's house. partially her father's fault. Her older daughter is very dependent on her mother and is at her house frequently. My girlfriend is very hesitant to go out on dates with me when her younger daughter is at home, which is most of the time. Girlfriend does not like to be at my house because she still feels like my home has my ex-wife's fingerprints all over it. My son, while 21 years old, is not very social. He sits at home when he's not working and expects me to be there too. It sometimes makes me feel guilty to be gone for the day. I try not to let it get to me, but so, my life with my girlfriend has become watching TV or having dinner at her house one day each weekend. We live about an hour apart. We hardly ever go out. Have only been intimate once in the past 6 months. I'm trying to be patient knowing that her younger daughter will be going to college next fall. Unless she changes her mind, but I'm at my wit's end. I've expressed my concerns with her and she always promises that things will change soon, but each time there's an opportunity either one of the kids interferes or instead of her putting her foot down, she gives in and ends up canceling our time together, or at the very least we end up with her daughters. My girlfriend grew up with very strict values. Her parents are still alive and well. She would lose it if her parents found out that we had slept together. It's the way she was brought up and it's the values she's tried to instill in her daughters. And that's fine, but when your kids are adults, they need to understand that adults have needs. It's not like we'd flaunt it in front of them. She'll spend time with me, but it seems that it's always with her daughters present. And no, I don't feel responsible for entertaining my son. I feel guilty at times leaving when he's at home and I'm spending the day away. Doesn't stop me though. It has a lot to do with his mother pretty much abandoning him when we divorced. He chose to live with me and she held it against him. And yes, her daughters are far too dependent on her. Yes, I've been contemplating parting ways with her if things don't change very soon. I've been telling her that we need to get away for a long weekend together. She has a busy September coming up and can't until after then. I keep asking for a weekend so I can plan something and I keep getting stonewalled. And the saga continues. Her daughter was supposed to go to her father's this weekend and I was going to spend my time at her house. Just received a call that her daughter is not going to her father's, but I can come spend the night on the sofa. Much to her dismay, I declined and the conversation ended quickly after I told her that she needed to stop this nonsense. My comment: what do you guys think about this short story? OP took control of the situation and did a good job. You agree? Comment down below, sub and bell, and let me get some quick rest for some upcoming longer stories.